Okay, so I am live now. I think it looks like the mic's working. Everything's good. This is my son Gideon. You say hi. Hey, what's up? All right, so we're going to be using Genesis 1 to 11, a new old translation for readers, scholars, and translators. And it's by Samuel L. Bray and John F. Hobbins. Really great book. And I like their translation. And we'll start there. And I'm just going to be using my Tanach to walk through it. And I'm going to read Genesis 3 in its entirety from this translation to Gideon. And then I'm going to hand it to him, and I'll let him read little bits and ask questions. So, all right. And I'm actually going to start in the last verse of chapter 2. Okay. And the two of them were naked, the man and his wife, and were not ashamed. Now the serpent was smooth and shrewd beyond every other beast of the field, which Yahweh God had made. And he said to the woman, "To be sure, God has said, you shall not eat of all the trees of the garden." And the woman said to the serpent, "Of the fruit of the trees of the garden we may eat, but of the fruit of the tree that is in the middle of the garden, God has said, you shall not eat of it, and you shall not touch it, lest you die." But the serpent said to the woman, "No, it is not. You must surely die. For God knows that on the day you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like gods, knowing good and evil." And the woman saw the tree was good for food, and that it was a delight to the eyes, and the tree was to be coveted to make one wise. And she took of its fruit and ate. And she gave some also to her husband with her, and he ate. And the eyes of the two of them were opened, and they knew that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves belts for coverings. And they heard the sound of Yahweh God walking about in the garden at the time of the wind of the day. And the man and his wife hid themselves from the face of Yahweh God in the middle of the trees of the garden. And Yahweh God called to the man and said to him, "Where are you?" And he said, "Your sound I heard in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, and I hid myself." And he said, "Who told you that you were naked? Of the tree of which I commanded you not to eat, have you eaten?" Said the man, "The woman whom you gave to be with me, she is the one who gave to me of the tree, and I ate." And Yahweh God said to the woman, "What is this you have done?" Said the woman, "The serpent, he tricked me, and I ate." And Yahweh God said to the serpent, "Because you did this, cursed are you beyond all cattle and beyond all the beasts of the field. On your belly shall you go, and dust shall you eat all the days of your life. Enmity will I set between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. He shall bruise your head, you shall bruise his heel." To the woman he said, "I will surely multiply your sorrow and your conceiving. In pain shall you bear children. Toward your husband shall be your longing, and it is he who shall rule over you." And to Adam he said, "Because you heeded the voice of your wife, and ate of the tree of which I commanded you, saying, you shall not eat of it, cursed is the ground because of you. And sorrow shall you eat of her all the days of your life. Thorn and briar shall she sprout for you. Thorn and briar shall she sprout for you. And you shall eat the grain of the field. By the sweat of your brow shall you eat bread until you return to the ground. For it is from her you were taken, for dust you are, and to dust you shall return." And the man called his wife's name Eve, because she was the mother of all the living. And Yahweh God made tunics of leather for Adam and for his wife, and clothed them. And Yahweh God said, "See, the man has become like one of us, in knowing good and evil. Now, lest he put out his hand and take also of the tree of life, and eat and live forever." And Yahweh God sent him away from the Garden of Eden to work the ground from which he was taken. And he drove the man out, and to the east of the Garden of Eden he posted the cherubim and the flame of the ever-turning sword to guard the way to the tree of life. All right, that is Genesis 3 in this translation. I'm now going to give it to you, Gideon, and right here it says, "And the two of them were naked, the man and his wife, and were not ashamed." So start there, read the first couple of verses, and
read from ashamed to...
From ashamed to what? You can read from, let's see, baby. Yeah, just start. "And the two of them were naked and were not ashamed," and read from there to maybe to that sentence, garden. Okay, read it out loud. Do you want to? Yeah, it's up to you. Read it, and maybe that's a better way to do it. Read as much as you want to read. And you decide when to stop, and then we'll start conversing.
Okay. And the two of them were naked, the man and his wife, and were not ashamed. Now the serpent was smooth and shrewd beyond every other beast of the field, which the Lord God had made. And he said to the woman, to be sure, God has said, you shall not eat of all the trees of the garden. You shall not eat of all the trees of the garden. And the woman said to the serpent, of the fruit of the trees of the garden we may eat, but of the fruit of the tree that is in the middle of the garden, God has said, you shall not eat of it, and you shall not touch it, lest you die. But the serpent said to the woman, no, it is not. You must surely die. For God knows that on the day you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like gods, knowing good and evil. And the woman saw that the tree was good for food.
I actually will stop you because I don't want you to read too much of a chunk. Here's partly why. This narrative is loaded with all kinds of symbolism, and it's loaded with metaphor, and it's loaded with what are called entendres. You know, double, like this has a triple entendre, for example. It has double and triple entendres. A double entendre is a thing that has two meanings. Let me give you an example, and we often joke about this. Children make nutritious snacks. You can laugh. Does that mean that I eat children? Does that mean I'm eating their little hands, or are their little hands good at making peanut butter sandwiches, right? Well, the answer is yes, right? Another one is the older carpenter nailed it, but the younger carpenter screwed it up. This is it's a double entendre. It has two meanings. So there are a lot of double meaning things. I think we should explore that before we go too far into it. So that first phrase that you read, and they were naked and knew no shame. Remember? That's where you started. What comes right after it?
Now the serpent was smooth and shrewd beyond every other beast in the field.
So, yeah, say that loud.
Um,
Which I'll pull you closer to, so you kind of need to be a little bit louder. Say it loud.
Now the serpent was smooth and shrewd beyond every other beast of the field.
Okay. Do you know that there's a relationship between those two verses?
No.
It doesn't sound like it. It doesn't sound like the verse about them being naked and the verse about the snake are connected, right? They just seem like totally different ideas and sentences, right?
Mm-hmm.
In Hebrew, okay, it says, find my place. Vayihayu shnehem arumim ha'am ve'ishto velo yitboshashu. They were both naked, okay, and the two of them were both naked, the man and his wife, and they were not ashamed. The word for naked is arum. Now watch this. Ve'hanachash haya arum. And the serpent was arum. Same word. The word for them being naked is arum. The word for the serpent being crafty or wise is arum. Same
that
word.
whole sentence, the whole sentence they were naked?
Yeah, the word for naked is the same word used to describe the serpent. Do they say the serpent was naked? How does that translation say it? The serpent was
Crafty.
Well, there, what does it say?
And the serpent was smooth and shrewd beyond every other beast of the field.
Sure. So this is what's there. There's something going on here. You know how the story ends. So do I. Let's start here because we're starting in Genesis 3. we kind of need to ask some questions about the background. Who is writing this? So this is in the book of Bereshit, Genesis. Okay, it's the first book in the Torah. Who is compiling this and writing this?
Paul.
No.
Um,
He wrote 5 books. He led Israel out of Egypt.
Moses.
Yeah, Moshe. He's the one who is compiling this. Now, is Moshe before these events in Genesis or after these events?
After.
Way after, right? So is the people he's writing it for, are they before these events or after?
Before and after.
After, right? They're with him. Let's be specific. Moses is writing this for post-Exodus Israel, post-Exodus Israelites. He's writing it for people, for Israelites who are already a nation, who have already been rescued, who have already been given commands. Right? So why is he writing it? What's his goal?
To remind the people not to sin.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's instruction involved. I would go further. I suspect that some of what Genesis is doing is it seems to be trying to teach simple people and kind of more skilled, learned, intelligent people. But I'll be more specific. What if I had a little boy that was going to be a priest, right? And I wanted to train the little boy how to function as a priest. Should I start training him when he's already a man, or wouldn't it be better to start when he was little?
Little.
Okay, I agree. You should start when he's little, but priests it's kind of a complicated job to be a priest, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Like you're having trouble listening to your daddy right now because you're looking at your dough and like digging things out, right? So it would be hard to focus on where to put the blood and how do I apply substances to things and this kind of stuff, whatever. Wouldn't it be great if I could tell one story and the child could understand the story? But as the child grew up, the story would have more layers and the story would have more meaning. Right? A child can hear this story and they can picture it and they can understand it. But an adult who understands the double meanings, they start to see another picture behind it, don't they? Mm-hmm. So that is this is layered. It is a way. So here's the problem, though. This is a question I have to ask. So Moses is a post-Exodus Israelite, right? And he's writing this for post-Exodus Israelites. What does that mean? What do I mean by saying that post-Exodus Israelite? Do you know? Somebody who comes after the Exodus. What's the Exodus?
Moses to Israelites out of Egypt.
Yeah, him helping them out and getting them out. Okay. So when you tell a joke that's like a pun or that's like a double entendre, has 2 meanings, can you translate that into another language?
Yes.
Can you? Think about it. Let's start with you can't, can you? Children make nutritious snacks. You can't translate that. Fun. Because it depends on a word having 2 meanings in English, right? You can't bring that into Mandarin. You can't bring it into Arabic. You can't, if you make the choice to write a pun or write a double entendre, then you're not going to be able to translate it. You're not going to be able to bring it into another language. So one of the problems we have right now is we're trying to read this in English. Was it written in English? No. So you're going to miss some of those puns if you can't read the Hebrew. You can't translate them. The only way to translate them is to write both meanings. So you'd have to have you have to double and triple all kinds of things. You end up with a much longer text. That's unnecessary if you can read Hebrew. if you can read Hebrew, then you can see all those things intact also too. Okay, look in my eyes. What are some questions you have about the text so far? I want to let you take the wheel here for a second. What are some questions you have about what we're reading? Because you asked to go through Genesis 3, so why'd you ask that? What are you curious about?
Yeah, I remember that time that we talked about Romans 4.
Yeah, we were in Romans 4. Which part of the Genesis 3? Because I did just read to you all of Genesis 3. Which part of that interests you? Which part of that creates a question for you? We'll start with you instead of me trying to work you through the verses. I don't think that's working out very well because I'm just trying to force you to go through things. So why don't you tell me what you think is the most interesting in this chapter, this section?
Important?
No, tell me some questions.
Was Satan a snake when Adam and Eve saw him?
Does the word Satan show up in what I read to you? No, it doesn't.
Serpent.
It's just the word serpent, right? So why are you, I actually think you're supposed to associate it with Hasatan, the Satan. You are supposed to associate it with him, but the text doesn't say that. So I almost want to force you to deal with the text. So we don't get to, I don't think we get to say immediately that Satan is the serpent, because the text doesn't say that, does it? No. So let's work with the text. Let's start with the text. Do you have any questions about it?
Not really, no.
So you understand everything I read to you fully?
When they were cast out of the garden.
Yep, verse 24.
It says they were cast out of that spot of the garden. Were they in the desert? Were they still in the garden, but just in a different spot?
They were kicked out of the garden.
Into the desert?
Into a place of wandering. That's a really interesting question, Gideon. Should you think of it as the desert? That's very interesting. Because a desert is actually a good way to describe how everything started. In the Torah, the first words in the Torah are Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz ve'haaretz hayta tohu vavohu. Tohu vavohu. That's a way to describe the desert. Trackless, uninhabited. It's a void and an empty. It's a desert. So did Yahweh kicking them out, did that symbolize going to a desert? I don't know, man. I think maybe. That's interesting. I know that when Yahweh creates, the starting place for creation is the desert. This tohu vavohu, this empty void. Darkness and water is like a desert. It's formless.
When Cain left, did he stay in the same spot? Because Cain's already casted out because his parents were casted out.
Bingo. So let's not work into 4. Let's not go too far, because now you're asking about 4, and we're going to talk about we're in Genesis 3. We can say this, though, that because Cain worked the ground, I don't think it's a desert of sand or anything like that. But I definitely think, okay, so the word midbar in Hebrew, midbar, right? It means wilderness. And they would use that word to describe a desert. They would also use that word to describe just uncontrolled nature too. So for them, the wilderness could be a desert and the wilderness could be uncontrolled nature. I'm going to have you look in my eyes, okay? This is kind of a new phenomena for you, I think, but look in my eyes. All right. So you understand that? You understand this chapter all end to end? You understand chapter 3 fully?
Yes.
Really? Okay. Let me hold that.
No.
No? Okay. What do you not understand? That's how we generate questions. I'm okay if this conversation is weird and long and circuitous and it winds around. You're a little dude, and it's hard to actually think through these things. It's hard for adults to think through this text.
Can't think of another question.
Well, let's start here. I'm asking you questions about the text. You're clutching the text and holding it to your chest. So one of the reasons you probably can't think of questions about the text is because you're not looking at the text. So one thing you could do is say, okay, Daddy already read this. I read a part. You could scan it again with your eyes and say, do I understand what I'm seeing? And if you run into something you don't understand, stop there and say, okay, I don't understand this, and ask a question about it. It's actually a good way to read the text. I mean, that could be a lesson for anybody, that when we read the text, we should read through it. And if we run into something we're not quite sure about, we stop there and camp out, try to understand it.
Wasn't the garden just for Yahweh and Adam and Eve? If it was, why is Satan in there?
Okay. Wasn't the garden just for Yahweh, Adam, and Eve? If it was, why is Satan there? Again, that's a great question. I think a better way to say is, why could a bad thing be there? But the word Satan's not there. The word Satan's not there. But it does get associated with Satan. Okay, what is Satan? Okay, is he human? What is he?
A heavenly being.
A heavenly being. What do we call heavenly beings?
Elohim.
Elohim. That's right. What does the serpent say here? What does he say? You'll be like, okay, look in my eyes, and then look in the book, or look in the book. Look in the book or my eyes. Don't look at the screen. It's wigging you out. I can see it.
What am I supposed to be reading?
Let's see. Right. The serpent says this. What does that say right there? For God knows that on that day you eat of it, your eyes will be opened and you will be
like gods.
Like Elohim. Okay. Later in the chapter, Yahweh says when he comes down, once Yahweh comes down,
so Satan is a god, and if they eat the fruit, there's a god. So Satan knows that they're going to eat the fruit. So that means Satan is able to be.
Well, I was going to say that Satan is an Elohim. It seems like Elohim are in the garden, because when Yahweh comes down and calls out to Adam and Eve, right, and he talks to them, he turns to a group of people in verse 22, and Yahweh does, and he says, "See, the man has become like one of us."
I was wondering about
that. Okay, what were you wondering about it? Ask about it. Questions are better than answers in a situation like this.
Who's us?
Who is us? Exactly. He's become like one of us. What did the serpent say? Who did the serpent say he would become like? They would become like if they ate. They would become
like gods.
Yes. So there are multiple Elohim there. It's not just the serpent, and it's not just Yahweh. And it's not just Adam and Eve. So
like us. like gods.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. Like Elohim. I mean, in Hebrew, that's verse 22, I think. And verse 22 in Hebrew, it says, yeah, Bar Yomer Yahweh Elohim, behold, Hin ha'adam haya ka'achad mimenu, like one from us, mimenu, from us, lada'at tov, knowing good and evil or harm. And now, lest he take from his hand, right? Hin yishlachido v'lakach gam me'etz hachayim ba'achal, yeah, and lest he eat of it and live forever. So there's Yahweh in the garden, there's Adam and Eve in the garden. We see the serpent, and then there are these people, these beings, we'll say beings, that Yahweh is talking to that are Elohim. So now you've got a fuller picture of what's going on, who's in the story. Okay? So do you have any questions about what I just said? Because part of a conversation is you'll ask a question, and I'll give an answer, and maybe what I said makes you think of another question about the thing.
No, not really.
Okay. Do you have any, is there anything on that page that you want to go through? It's okay if you're tired. You actually look kind of tired, and I'm okay. Like, this video is titled Part 1, so I'm totally fine with cutting it short if you want to stop.
Okay.
Is that what you want to do?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Well, this is what it's like to train a little dude. You got to be patient. You got to keep at it, and we'll pick it back up. I think this would be an interesting conversation, and maybe I can reward him with something like some chocolates or something to give him a little bit more motivation. All right. See you guys.